and who you suspend on Twitter, etc. That comes from the university shadowing of people who may disagree. And yeah, it usually is a left-right matter where a lot of these companies are towards the left.
Gents, we are recording. Boom.
The Three-Headed Hydra is back.
Back.
Fresher, better, and browner than ever. Today we're talking about university in 2020, and I'm just going to leave the word to Kanye West for 10 seconds.
Scared of the future while I hop in the DeLorean. Scared to face the world, complacent career student. Some people graduate, but we still stupid.
So I'll start my minute with that. Some people graduate, but they are still stupid. So there's lots to go into here. University in 2020. What we have are universities with a falling registration rate in the US and the UK, which I suppose we'll focus on. They're more expensive than ever. They provide a sloppier service than ever. They're stuck in a perennial identity crisis between a legitimate business, educational institution and a research institution, and you can't be at the top of all three at the same time, so they don't know where they're going or where they are. They've also been grabbed and ragdolled by the far left postmodern types, and they're a breeding ground for some of the most ridiculous ideas that are seeping out into everyday life, into wider society. So apart from that, everything's perfect and you should all go to university.
A very unbiased minute, James.
But go on, anyway.
A nice neutral minute.
I've got statistics for all of those facts.
Yeah, good man. Not a lot. Sal, you've been to university, right?
Yes, I have. Although my experience is more focused on the German market because that's where I went.
Nine?
Yeah. I mean, I actually was almost exactly 14 years ago that I studied in Germany, in Cologne, at the University of Applied Sciences. And I guess some of the questions that are going to come up in this conversation, I assume are, is it worth to have a university degree at all? Should you make a lot of debt to go to university? Does an academic title guarantee job safety? And is university, as you just alluded to, a new breeding ground for brainwashing students to become radical leftists? And I mean, from my point of view, from my experience that I had 14 years ago, so things might have changed, probably have changed, and things might be different also in Germany. Quickly, is it worth to have a university degree? That can be debated, because when people criticize universities, it's a very broad field. I mean, it's one thing if you study philosophy, it's another thing if you study medicine, physics, chemistry, engineering. I mean, I'd rather have somebody in those fields to have studied rather than not. But should you make a lot of debt? That's definitely a problem. And I would say quickly no, and we can get into it later. But there's different ways, I suppose, in countries where debts are lower. All right. Dan, you're up next.
Just quickly, Sal.
What's your opinion?
What was your subject, Sal? What subject did you study?
Media informatics, IT.
Well, as we all know, I'm nothing but a stupid plasterer, so I didn't go to university. I'm just a dense construction worker. But, I mean, I do remember being in school, and university never looked really like much of an option for me. But I also remember thinking, if there isn't a clear path to what you want to do, and if university doesn't get you there, then I never thought it was really a good idea, even though it kind of was pushed on you as a good idea, maybe. And that's all I can really offer, because I'm not an experienced man in it. But I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Well, I think that's spot on then, because a lot of people don't have the thought process that you had, and they think, well, the next step for me is university, right? Well, it's a possibility, yeah, but there are other roads, and I don't think we inform people enough that there are other options that can lead to a fulfilling career outside of academia.
So James, when you say they offer a sloppier service than they used to, I mean, can you give an example of what they used to do that they don't do now?
I can tell you what they do now that they didn't used to. Do it the other way around. Yeah. There's been an explosion in what some people tongue-in-cheek call grievance studies. This is the study of everything that's wrong with society. So things like gender studies, these kind of subjects didn't exist in such numbers years ago. And it's become a breeding ground for, as they're called, grievance studies, for complaints against society, which aren't founded in too much evidence, shall we say. And a lot of people will say, well, it's okay. Well, things happen on campus, and then people go out into the world when they've graduated, and they see that they're being idealistic when they're sort of 18 to 20, 21, and then they need to adapt. What's happening now is that these kind of ideas are seeping into everyday life. Ideas like equity, things like what's happening in the US in, for example, Portland, where parts of the city have been occupied by the far left. These kind of concepts start at the university, and if you go to a job interview and you're not the right color, or you're not the right sexuality, or you don't tick the right box on the intersectional politics list, because I'm looking for a black disabled lesbian who, because there are about 14 of these criteria, right? And so the idea is that you tick all the boxes in your staff, not because of competence, but because of the body type of the person, which is a kind of discrimination. I can't see how it's not. People say it's reverse discrimination. So, it's absolutely discrimination if you're going out of your way not to choose somebody on the basis of their quality as a person. Anyway, all of these ideas started at the university as sort of quite niche ideas, and they're spreading out into society. And I've read a couple of books recently. For example, The Coddling of the American Mind is an excellent book, and it talks about how in the last 5 years especially, what was once very extreme in a university campus setting has become mainstream in everyday society. Thanks to other factors as well, such as social media. But yeah, the universities are not helping in general to contribute to a society, and they should be, because in a functioning society, these are intellectual spaces where you're training the minds that will take the country forward in the future. And what we're getting now, instead of intellectual spaces, are safe spaces, right? A safe space and an intellectual space are completely different things, because in an intellectual space, you need to be able to challenge ideas. You need to be able to confront ideas respectfully, talk to people that you don't agree with, and then if the arguments are convincing enough, change your opinion. What I see university as now is basically a form of, well, in Peter Pan, it would be Neverland. In Pinocchio, it would be Pleasure Island. The archetypes are everywhere in sort of cartoons and folklore, but it's a place where you can delay growing up instead of a place to go to mature. And that, for me, is the opposite of useful. So
where do you think the problem, I don't know, stemmed from originally? Is it because, I mean, you're saying there about the technology, I mean, that's got to be a massive factor in it, because obviously these opinions are fresh, and then everyone who's adopting the new technologies, which are so much more powerful than anything the old mindset would be able to get around, because they've adopted these new technologies, their voices are so much louder, and that's how they've been able to dominate, right?
Yeah. Well, you've got a theory on that, haven't you, Sal, about how it's helped, small voices become very loud voices?
Oh yeah, sure. I mean, but that's a whole different topic. I would say going into the whole social media phenomenon. I'm very interested actually to define things a bit more, because I mean, there's so many things we can already talk about just based on the last minute and a half. But the critique of the universities, it seems to me most of the time, and you said we were going to focus mostly on the American and the British universities, and unfortunately I'm not very well informed about those. But would you say the critique mostly surrounds the humanities?
The social sciences.
Social sciences, because there's so many different study fields, really, that talking about universities is very broad. So because all the examples that you just mentioned, maybe biology would be one exception to that, because there's...
Well, this is exactly, so just to pick up that baton, so it starts in the social sciences, and this is sciences with a small s, because anything that they find using the scientific method, which is not ideologically coherent, will be squashed. I don't know if you guys listened to Sam Harris's podcast with a geneticist a couple of weeks back. She was arguing that you shouldn't research certain genetic differences between groups in case you find something which could be inflammatory. So this goes against what the universities have always been for, which is to push the boundaries and to find things out for the rest of us. If there are genetic differences, then we can work with them to try and make a fairer society. But you can't just close your eyes and say, well, I'm not even looking there because I might find something I don't want. So this is where the social sciences then obstruct the other sciences with a capital S and other areas. And it doesn't matter what you teach at university. If you put 1 foot wrong, you are dead meat.
Because but it's a problem then the university. It's a problem that the sorry if I interject, but it's a problem that the university itself, because I see it through the lens of IT now, because I studied IT. So if I need to know a program language, Java, which I learned back then, and I have a certain set of commands that I use and keywords and whatever, I'm going to learn them. I learned them back then, and I will learn them now if I need to learn the language. So the content itself hasn't really changed. So in my field, anyway.
Oh, sorry for Java. Yeah, I can't speak for Java.
So I think So my question would be: is the university and the content taught the problem, or is the problem in the field of research at universities and the cancel culture a problem? But is the cancel culture just a cultural phenomenon that is blasting through universities now, and can it be somehow stopped or slowed down or cancelled? Ironically,
the cancel culture.
Exactly, because some are calling for universities basically to be abolished, and that seems a bit radical. Because
So just to go back one step, in case anybody is not familiar with cancel culture, what's that about?
I mean, it's basically something that you started mentioning before. The idea that if somebody has a different opinion than you do, or I guess in research, if somebody has a different research focus or feel, like the genetics that you mentioned before, right? That something should not even be discussed, and therefore their voices or opinions are being cancelled completely, rather than letting them speak, even if it's unpleasant or even radical, and having a logical argument about what is being put forth.
That's it.
So yeah.
I mean, your question was, where's the problem? I think all of those are problems which go into a big cake.
It's a bit of a provocative problem, but also it's also an honest question, because as I mentioned, in engineering, I don't see how politics or cancel culture, all these things, are going to be a big problem. And since people always talk about universities, I want to understand if they also see those fields. If you see those fields, you personally also as part of that criticism.
I mean, I don't think any field is safe, because, I mean, a lot of universities now, to give you an example of what has changed, a lot of universities have, I can't remember the term, it's a fantastically Orwellian term. It could be straight out of 1984. It's like, what are they called? Like equality officers or some sort of euphemism for that. Right. And basically, these people are employed to answer complaints of inequality or hate speech, etc. So, a student will run off to them and say, well, this professor said that, let's pick anything, there might be genetic differences between European Jews and, Inuits in Alaska. There might be genetic differences. There might be. All right. Or you shape something like Eric Weinstein, or Brett Weinstein, Brett Weinstein shaped something as a hypothetical. What if, and he got in deep water for it, hot water for it, because it was this person's job to put him in trouble, because these people don't have a job if they don't find problems. What it is something that's seeping out into everyday society, which is problematizing life. Okay. Instead of talking to the person as an adult with respect, you find the problem and you try to cancel them. Cancelling in this case would mean to lose your job, to lose your possibility to speak, even, like you said. So where's the problem? What was the other option a couple of minutes ago? Where the other problem was? Because I see all these problems intertwined. It's about the culture of the university and how a university as an institution sees its role in society. Mm-hmm. And I think they've completely lost their way in the last 5 or 10 years. Mm-hmm. So what was the other option? I got a bit lost.
The other option, you mean the other example? Yeah. Biology or?
Well, right. So where does it? You asked. Well, surely there are some faculties.
Other fields, yeah, physics, right. Medicine, chemistry.
You could say, the human sciences are going a bit crazy, sort of stroking Foucault, right, etc., etc. Everything's about power. Everything's about the hierarchy. If you're not the oppressor, you're the oppressed. So there's problem everywhere. Problem. Oh my God, what are we going to do? Cancel. That will solve it. But it's not just there, because, like we said with the biologist, your research area is going to be severely curtailed, or you need to think twice about what you say. Not even twice, 3 times, because if you say something even half controversial, and I'm not saying hateful, I'm not saying provocative, something that could be disagreed with, you're in serious danger of losing your job. And you could have been working towards that job for 10, 20, 30 years. You could have a family that relies on the salary for that job.
I guess social sciences is probably more prominent there, because there's a lot of political opinions in the field as well. So everything can be politicized there. And biology probably also because, again, there's some political element, which is gender fluidity, which now has become a political talking point, right? I guess.
But I don't mind if that's going to be an open discussion.
Right.
Then let's talk about it, because there are things to say on both sides. Mm-hmm. But you have to be able to have the open discussion. Once you cancel the platform of open discussion, you're going absolutely nowhere, and it becomes a tyranny. Because then there's only one voice, and that's the definition of tyranny. Mm. And this is the problem.
I guess it's just hard to wrap my head around it, because my lens is very one-sided here in IT. I can't imagine how there could be controversy, or how they could politicize code. Well, even though there's like a thing I read the other day, that there's a platform that's for uploading your code in a nutshell and providing it to others, and there's a system called master and slave, and they want to now substitute those words because it was around the Black Moves Matter.
Black Lives Matter.
Black Lives Matter.
Black moves always matter. My man.
And so they wanted to abolish now the master and slave, or even what was the other word? Anyway, so I could imagine that maybe some words will fall victim to this.
But it's not just words, like algorithms, like. Some of the Silicon Valley tech companies are some of the most left-leaning companies in the world, right? That's tech, that's engineering. Mm. So it's about who your algorithm allows to pass through the net, and who you suspend on Twitter, etc. That comes from the university shadowing of people who may disagree. And it usually is a left-right matter, where a lot of these companies are towards the left. the far left, Like there's a lot of funny little videos online about how woke Silicon Valley companies are. But that's a tech issue, right? You think, oh, well, it's just engineering, it's just computer geeks. Well, it seeps into everything. It's like a drop of sewage. It contaminates the whole pot.
But then I suppose if they don't put forward the ideas that are, if they don't put forward popular ideas, people won't come to them. If people didn't like that about it, then they wouldn't go there. And that's just kind of capitalism playing out, isn't it? Which is kind of...
About the universities then?
No, the tech companies.
Okay.
And I suppose the universities, yeah. I mean, it's a bit of a problem happening at the moment, but maybe the universities that don't sway to that kind of mentality will end up coming out on top because people want to send their kids there. And that's going off topic a little bit. But I mean, with regards to your technology ones, I understand that the social media is such a force, such an overwhelming force. And yeah, they're in control and they're left leaning, so the ideas don't come forward. But at the end of the day, if people didn't want to hear those, if people got sick of those ideas, they would stop. They'd realise that the algorithm's only giving them that, and then they'd fail in the big picture.
But you won't, I suppose so. But it's a kind of thing where you only eat what's on the menu, So it's not like you complain about what's not on there because you're not even conscious that it's an option. But in terms of university, I do have the stats here. In the US, the tuition rate has gone down from 21.5 million in 2010 to 11 to 20.2 million. So that's over 1 million losses in 2016-17. The number of universities has decreased because a lot of them are being forced to close because it's not worth your money. Another thing is getting more expensive. In the UK, it's gone from $1,500 a year just for tuition fees without living costs to $3,000 when I was there about 10 years ago. And just after I left, it moved up to a maximum of $9,000. But a lot of universities are charging $9,000 a year for tuition fees for the same, if not a worse service. So imagine paying 3 times as much. I mean, this will go into your spreadsheet, Sal, for tins of beans around Rome.
Yeah, no, I would definitely not go into all this depth for university and to go full circle. And also because I think we have hit 20 minutes. No. What you said before in the beginning, referring to Dan, because he had a clear idea of what he wanted to achieve. Yeah. And then made a decision, and probably he didn't go to university, and probably is the most successful of the three of us right now. So
I'd say quite the opposite myself. I didn't have a clear idea, and so I chose.
You did not? Okay, but you said you don't have a clear idea, so you don't.
Not getting. I say if you have a clear idea, and university is a clear path to get there, then university is a good idea.
Yeah, that's what I meant too. Yeah, I said it a bit clumsy, but yeah.
I mean, just a really final point, because I know we keep butchering this 20-minute rule that we've made. I mean, I'm doing a master's at the moment with the University of Nottingham in applied linguistics, and everything that I'm reading there are things that I could find freely online, freely and free.
It's just also structured.
Yeah, of course it's structured, but I'm thinking, oh yeah, I've actually read a lot better articles than that somewhere else, or I can find it in the books that I'm reading by Steven Pinker, for example. Is it worth the $10,000 that I'm going to pay for that qualification just to get a funny hat? If I had a kid right now, I would be very, very careful before recommending university to them. Like sending Peter Pan to Neverland. It's fun in the short term, pretty useless in the long term right now.
I mean, I guess we could spend another 3 hours talking about it because there's so much fertile soil there. But
we'll do another.
Yeah,
university
exactly.
too. No, it was good anyway. I think we covered the main points.
Yeah.
Another thing. No, I'm joking. I've got more. Let's leave it.
Okay, then, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for watching this episode of the Three-Headed Hydra Podcast with James, Dan. My name is Sal. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube and Instagram and wherever you find us. And see you in the next episode.
I'll go for a raw bit, raspy though.
Bye-bye.
Why are we making these podcasts? Because 3 heads are better than 1. We'll combine our experiences and research on engaging topics to learn a bit more each time, enjoy the chat, and improve our own communication skills in the process. Innovation comes from the ability to correlate information between different realms of knowledge, and we all have very different realms of knowledge between the three of us.
Why the Hydra, you ask? In archetypal mythology, dragons guard piles of gold. Overcoming fears can bring great rewards. What you most need is often where you least want to look, and we won't shy away from the fire to challenge each other and reach that goal.
What's in it for you, listener? Learn, laugh and love. Get involved and join us on this adventure.